So the question in that bipartisan context, given the steep agenda that the president has laid out for himself, given the agenda that the Congress has, and even though the Democrats are going through their transition right now, we act like we've never been there before, us Republicans. Trust me, I inherited that in 2009, walking into that. How does this idea of bringing the Democrats in the House, Senator, work with the president's agenda? I mean, you've got the things that Senator Lott just mentioned. You've got infrastructure. You even have some who talked about, okay, if you want to be reasonable on health care, we'll work with you.
Right.
How do you make that transition as Democrats to help Republicans get into that sweet spot, and Republicans help the Democrats get over their fear and loss and anger about the election and move into that space as well?
Michael, it may be too simplistic, and Trent's heard me say this many times. I think the word is inclusion. Bring them down to the White House. Have the president meet with the leadership on a regular basis. I think it's important to meet with the Republican leadership. They're running things, but it's also important to meet with the Democrats. And the more inclusive that the Republicans can be, the more responsive the Democrats will be. But it's not just the president. I think the leadership needs to work together. They need to do a better job of trying to find ways to include, to start that dialogue. And the more they do that, the more optimistic I'll become.
When Reagan was president, we met every Tuesday that Congress is in session at 9 o'clock at the White House in the cabinet room, and quite often it was bipartisan leadership.
Interesting.
After 9/11, Tom Daschle, Dick Gephardt, and Denny Hastert and I met with the president for breakfast every week at 7 a.m.
Right.
And he told us what was going on. We were able to question what was going on and learn from that. You got to
That's
have
not
that.
happening.
But I'm
That's
going
not
to say one
happening.
other thing. I know the leadership in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, is under pressure to not necessarily work too much with the Republicans, but I believe Chuck Schumer in the end will want to find a way
I
to
agree
get
with you
some
on
things
that.
done.
I agree with you.
You would hope.
But it's his nature to make a deal.
Yeah,
it is.
I got two
Yeah.
words for Senator Daschle. You know what they are: repeal, replace. You've seen what we think is the replacement document. It's basically the new Secretary of Health and Human Services blueprint going back 2 years. What do you think?
My two words are repair and improve.
Thank you. And I don't think we're getting that.
There is Bob Dole's just walking in.
Senator Bob Dole.
There he is. And yay, our band here. Huh? That is great.
But no, repair and improve. And I'm encouraged with what I'm hearing right now, that there is a possibility that we could actually do that.
But
I think so.
the president, like every president, and I've watched 8 of them come to town now, there's a learning curve. I mean, this is a big, tough place. And President Trump is learning that you better be careful what you roll out.
Yeah.
Because it might not work. So take a little time.
Take a little
get
time,
it right.
get it right, and that's the key thing.
Okay.
Now we've got a new apple in the barrel here. The senator from the great state of New Jersey, Mr. Delaware, New Jersey, Delaware. We were talking about New Jersey earlier. That's why. Delaware. Senator Coons, welcome to Steel and Unger.
Thank you. Great to be with you,
Good
Michael.
to have you on with the former majority leaders.
Two fantastic majority leaders who are great advisors and leaders here through the Bipartisan Policy Center. Great to be celebrating 10 years of BPC and to be talking through some of the ways we might find a bipartisan solution to the challenges facing us with this new administration.
And Senator Coons received one of the awards tonight for
Legislative
legislative achievement.
Senator.
And,
Gave a great
congratulations.
speech.
Yeah.
Great speech.
So
Congratulations. No, he's actually been one of those guys. I know we go back a little bit to his race in Delaware, and the reality of it is, when it was all said and done, we chatted a little bit and figured out, we have a little things that we can do. I mean, Maryland, Delaware, Delmarva, we've got a common interest in the environment and a lot of things like that. Finding those sweet spots, has that been a challenge for you, Senator, in this modern environment versus what these gentlemen were just talking about, meeting with the president, of the other party on a regular basis kind of deal?
It is hard. One of the things I hear regularly from Vice President Biden, who was my predecessor, I'm in the seat he held for 36 years, is just how different the environment is today than it was a decade or two ago. But as long as you keep an open heart and you're willing to really listen, and you follow an 80-20 rule and recognize that there's things we're just going to disagree on and focus on the things you can agree on, you can make a real difference.
Where does the motivation have to come from to make that happen again? Does it come from the Democrat senators? Does it come from the Republicans? Does it come from the president? How do you make what they had happen again?
Well, I do think there was some unique chemistry between these two leaders. You have to have leaders whose caucuses say to them, we want to legislate and we want to solve problems and we're going to get things done. You got to have the American people say, we're frankly sick and tired of the fighting, and we'd rather have you solve the real problems facing our family than keep jacking up ratings on, Fox or MSNBC.
Right.
And I think that is part of the message that we heard from this election. Was an awful lot of folks who would have voted for Bernie in the primaries, and the Democratic Party switched over and voted for Trump in the general.
Right.
There are folks who are just frustrated, who don't have a defining ideology but want to see us solve problems.
Let me jump in there just briefly, though. You're right that you need the leadership to step up in both bodies of both parties. But I do believe in this country, in our system, it begins with the president. You need a president that has a vision, that will lay out some policies, but will listen to the Congress and work with the Congress to actually get a product. And that's where it begins. And if you don't have that leadership there, it's awfully tough.
Well, the key word is leadership. You really need leadership, not only from the president, but leadership in the Congress as well. There has to be. They set the standard. They set the sort of the environment by which you create the climate for getting things done.
I was going to ask you on that point, Senator Daschle. Does the partisan environment drive the White House in that regard? Because going back to what you were saying about the ability to meet with a Reagan, I remember very well Speaker Gingrich and his relationship with Bill Clinton. And I like to make, when I give speeches, I like to make the point that back in the day, even in the midst of Republicans impeaching the president, they were still able to get big things done, like balancing the budget. And so it wasn't personal. Has it become too personal for members to actually get beyond that sort of partisan's edge, or is it just this is where we're stuck for a while?
I don't think Chris would be the best one to judge that.
We are able to get smaller bore things done. In your introduction, you referenced the Defend Trade Secrets Act I did with Orrin Hatch last year. Senator Hatch and I have quite different views on a lot of issues.
Right.
But if you pick something, and this happens to be the issue of protecting America's inventions. If you pick something where you've both got an interest and you've got staff and you're on the relevant committee, we are still moving bills pretty regularly. They're just not big bills. They're not solving fundamental problems.
But Chris,
and let me say this about our current president and his views. 10 of us, 10 senators, Democrats and Republicans, were invited over for lunch 2 weeks ago on Thursday. And what became clear about 15 minutes into the lunch was that this president is a deal maker. He wants to cut deals. He wants to announce big, bold deals that he's gotten done. And he discussed things seriously with us that, let's just say, would be a significant departure from Republican orthodoxy or positions he took in the campaign.
Yep.
And if Democrats are willing to seize this opportunity and Republicans are willing to work with us honestly to find things that we can all live with, this president wants to sign stuff.
Well, Senator Coons, I get a little nervous when I start being from Mississippi. I start thinking about two guys from New York, Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump, getting in a room and making a deal.
There's a New Yorker here, Senator. Let's be careful. Don't you guys think that some of this has to do with leadership? Two members of Congress who represent districts that abut one another, okay? They didn't know each other. I introduced them. And when I said, how is it possible that you have literally the same constituents, you're divided by a district line, they said nobody wants leadership to see them talking to somebody from the other party on the floor. There's something profoundly wrong with that.
There is. I think that peer pressure is a real problem.
It's a big part of it.
The other part of it is that people aren't in Washington as much as I think they need to be.
Absolutely.
You're
right.
We really don't have the opportunity to get to know each other and socialize like we used to.
Right. Senator,
That's
that
a big
is such
issue.
an important. I grew up here. I'm a native Washingtonian, so I've watched the parade of men and women come through this town from across the country as a young kid and all the way into adulthood. And you just made, for me, the quintessential point about what's been the biggest problem. When you're not raising your kids together, when they're not in the same school, when the wives don't work together when When you see each other in the hallways, you don't say, hey, saw you at the softball game the other night.
Right.
That does have an impact on that relationship. It does become less personal.
Other than communication and leadership, Tom and I have talked about chemistry.
Yeah.
Having a relationship and knowing each other. My partner ever since I left the Senate is John Bro from Louisiana,
Yep.
Democrat.
Yep.
We lived on the same street.
Yeah.
My kids played with his kids. Our wives were best friends. You think I would do something mean to him
Right.
the next day? No way.
Right.
But that ingredient is missing.
It's a big part. Well, gentlemen, thank you guys so much. This
Guys,
has been
terrific.
This has been a real special treat for us here to
Really.
have you guys come in and take a few moments
Let's do it.
to talk about bipartisanship, talk about the good work here at the center, and to celebrate 10 years of progress.
That's right.
And thank you, sir, for your role in helping found all of this, Senator Daschle.
10 more to come.
10 more to come.
You bet.
Really appreciate
Sounds
it.
good.
Senator Trent Lott, Senator
right,
Tom
sir. Thank
Daschle,
you.
and Senator Chris Coons. Thank
All
you
right,
so
thank you.
much, my man from Delaware.
New Jersey. I wouldn't put up with that,
We
Senator.
were talking about New Jersey.
I wouldn't put up with that.
He knows I know better. He knows I know better. So